there was a popular children's program called the Rugrats, and it's this show about these children and what kind of mischief they get into as as their parents are away at work. And what there is an older sister and some other siblings and friends who would stay with them. And so this older sister really takes it upon herself to be the leader, to be the one who's in charge, and even she can end up being a little bit bossy. And at a certain point, she turns to one of her younger friends and she says to them, "You know what? I really wish that I were you." And they look and they're like, "Wow, like she really respects me. She really appreciates me. She's saying something great to me. This is a great compliment." But she's not finished. That she then said, "No, I really wish that I were you, because then I would get to be friends with me." And for me, this is a great example of really an excessive kind of pride, of self-worth, this really kind of self-centered, self-serving way of looking at yourself. And it's something that isn't good. Today in our imitation of Christ, we have this chapter entitled On Having a Humble Opinion of Oneself. And really this is something that is so important. That if we want to grow, if we want to make progress, we need to be humble about who we are. And what I mean by humility, I want to make very clear. That I don't mean this kind of false humility, this idea that, I always have to put myself down, that, oh, I'm so bad and I'm terrible, and even though I have good qualities, I never mention them, or I never let anyone compliment me for them. No, that's a false kind of humility. Humility is something that is based in the truth. And someone can be humble even about their strengths by acknowledging them or receiving, a compliment from someone else. And so a true humility, which acknowledges the great things that we have, but also notices our weaknesses. And this is something that is essential for progress in the spiritual life. If you think of someone coming into a class, if they come in and they have this idea that I already know everything, I'm not going to learn anything from here, I have to come here, I'm forced or whatever, but I already know it all. So they will never learn anything. But even if they already know a lot about that subject, they could come in and say, you know what, maybe there's something for me here to learn. And maybe they'll be surprised and they'll actually deepen their understanding of that subject. It's a similar thing with our spiritual life, that it's so important that we be humble, that we not think that we know it all, that we have it all under control, we got it all figured out, but that we come before God and we allow Him to speak to us, that we allow Him to tell us what we need and how to grow. And then just kind of on a very practical point, I'd like to share with you there's something so good in this chapter as well. That Thomas à Kempis says that we have to be very careful about pointing out the sins of others, even if it's something that he says is grievous or very serious. And the reason why is because if we were in that same situation where that person fell, where they did that really bad thing, that if we were in that same situation, given the same temptation, who knows what we would do? That maybe we would fall just as worse, or maybe even more. And that this is important, that we know who we are, that we are sinners too, right? And that we have our weaknesses, and that and that when we look at others, that we have this really spirit of great generosity, of not wanting to condemn them, of not wanting to judge them harshly, but to be very understanding, and even to make excuses for them. Well, maybe they didn't know what they were doing. Maybe they thought something else. Maybe they just had a bad day, and that's why they were grumpy in the morning, that we don't know all of the circumstances. So it's important to have this attitude of being very generous, forgiving, and merciful. And this is something that we see in Jesus, that He has this. And this is all connected to that virtue of humility. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not a Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-all, but that I'm coming with a spirit of wanting to learn, of wanting to grow. And if we do that, God can work with that. He can form that. He can help to shape that. And we can become better images of Jesus Christ.